When you miss a payment, you imagine a bank waiting patiently. Maybe a polite reminder in your inbox or a quiet note in your account. But what if that loan isn't even theirs anymore? What if, the moment you fell behind, your name, your number, and your fear were quietly sold to someone you'll never meet? Because somewhere, deep in the unlit corridors of global finance, debts move like contraband. They're bundled into invisible packages, traded in midnight transactions, and passed from one unseen hand to another. You may think your loan sits safely with the institution you borrowed from, but in reality, it might already belong to a stranger in another country. A corporation that sees your struggle not as a tragedy, but as an opportunity. There's a market where human desperation has a price tag, where billions of dollars in unpaid credit cards, medical bills, student loans, and mortgages are auctioned every single day. And here's the twist. Those who profit from your pain rarely show their faces. You don't see the traders who buy portfolios of broken promises. You don't see the call centers built on fear. And you don't see the investors, the ones smiling as your debt becomes their asset. What if I told you, right now, someone out there owns the right to chase you forever, and they bought that right for less than the cost of your morning coffee? Welcome to the history of debt, where we uncover the stories money tries to hide. Because if your debt keeps changing hands, who really owns you? It begins the moment you slip behind. One missed payment becomes two. Then, somewhere inside a bank's data center, a switch flips. Your loan, once part of their assets, becomes part of their problem. And problems are meant to be sold. So, the bank does what banks do best. They package it. Thousands of overdue accounts, each with its own story of struggle, bundled together like an unmarked parcel. Then, quietly, they sell it. They don't sell it to another bank. They sell it to a debt buyer, a firm that thrives in the shadows of finance. Imagine it. Millions of unpaid credit cards, hospital bills, and payday loans stacked into digital spreadsheets, worth billions on paper, but bought for pennies. Somewhere in New York, or London, or Singapore, an analyst runs a calculation. They pay maybe 5 cents on the dollar for your pain, believing they can squeeze out 10. And just like that, ownership changes. You never signed the transfer, you never got a notice. Yet your obligation, your promise, has a new master. The old lender moves on, books cleared. The new owner gets to work. They hire collectors. They send letters that sound like threats wrapped in politeness. They call, over and over. But here's the hidden beauty, or horror, of this system. It's scalable. Debt isn't just a number. It's a tradable asset. The same tools used for trading stocks, oil, or real estate now fuel a vast ecosystem of financial predators. Somewhere tonight, a company will sell $10 million in bad loans to another company. And by sunrise, the buyers will already be collecting. Every account becomes a bet. Every borrower, a potential jackpot. Somewhere, a stranger just bought your fear for 5 cents on the dollar. And behind them stands another buyer. And another. Because in the modern debt machine, even debts get recycled. They're flipped, repackaged, and sold again, passed between hands like digital ghosts, until one day you stop answering the phone, and they stop caring about your story. Because to the machine, you were never a person. You were a number in a spreadsheet, and a line of profit in someone else's empire. Welcome to the underworld of shadow finance, the true empire of debt collectors. These aren't the grim men from old movies, knocking on doors with baseball bats. These are corporations. Algorithmic giants with polished offices and invisible reach. They buy billions in delinquent loans, each portfolio carefully analyzed by AI models that predict who's most likely to pay. They track your data, your age, job, last payment date, even the time you usually pick up your phone. Every click, every email becomes a clue. From this data, they build psychological maps of their targets. Because collecting money isn't about threat, it's about precision. Some companies use portfolio flipping, selling the same batch of debts multiple times to different collectors. Others use resale networks, bouncing ownership between subsidiaries in a global game of hot potato, each time squeezing a little more profit. This isn't finance, it's alchemy, turning unpaid promises into gold. And the empire stretches far beyond your country's borders. American credit card debt can end up owned by a shell firm in Luxembourg. A student loan in Texas could be traded through a fund in the Cayman Islands. A hospital bill in Ohio might belong to a hedge fund in London. It's global, opaque, and utterly legal. Billions of transactions occur each year, but few people can trace where the money truly goes. In this shadow empire, language changes. You're no longer a borrower. You're an asset, a revenue stream, a recovery opportunity. Collectors call it efficiency. Critics call it exploitation. Because these companies don't just buy debt, they buy rights. The right to contact you, to sue you, to garnish your wages, to report your name. And once they buy that right, they can sell it again. Each sale, each trade dilutes accountability. When you call to ask who you owe, even the collectors may not know. Some debts are so old, so recycled, that no one can prove where they started. Yet they live on, haunting the system like financial ghosts, and these ghosts are profitable. One major debt-buying company once bragged to investors that every dollar they spent brought back 8 in revenue. 8-1, on despair. They call it recovery. But what they recover is control. This is the hidden empire. A network of firms, funds, and algorithms united by one silent principle. Every unpaid promise is a market waiting to be exploited. Behind every portfolio, there's a heartbeat. A single mother, juggling 2 jobs, who fell behind on a medical bill, now fielding calls from 5 agencies, each claiming she owes them. A young man with student loans, who finally pays one collector, only to find out the debt's been sold again, and he owes it twice. A retired worker living on savings, sued over a debt he already cleared years ago. These aren't isolated stories. They're the human soundtrack of a system built on confusion. Because when ownership keeps changing, clarity disappears. Collectors exploit that fog. They use it to pressure, to intimidate, to extract. The more lost you feel, the more likely you'll pay, just to make it stop. In the US alone, over 70 million people have been contacted by debt collectors. Tens of thousands are sued each year, often without proof of the original debt. Imagine standing in court, unable to verify who you owe. Imagine being sued by a company you've never heard of, holding papers you never signed. That's the new face of debt. Faceless, nameless, relentless. And the damage goes deeper than money. Debt collection is built on psychology, on fear, shame, and guilt. It feeds on silence, because the more embarrassed you feel, the easier it is for them to win. And that silence echoes. It breaks families. It shatters credit. It steals years. This is how modern finance feeds itself. Not from growth or creation, but from extraction. From the exhaustion of people who already lost. We often think of empires as armies and kings, but this empire doesn't conquer with weapons. It conquers with letters, lawsuits, and phone calls at dinner time. And when the system is questioned, it hides behind legality. Because every collector, every trader, every investor in this chain can say the same thing. I'm just doing my job. But the truth is simpler. They're not collecting debt. They're collecting control. To find the true rulers of this empire, follow the money. And you won't end at the call center. You'll end on Wall Street. The same investment firms that fund governments, build skyscrapers, and trade futures also invest in debt collection companies. Private equity giants buy stakes in recovery firms, then push them to expand aggressively. Pension funds, yes, the money meant for retirees, quietly finance portfolios of delinquent credit cards. To them, it's just another yield. Another line of profit on a spreadsheet. Some of the biggest names in finance own pieces of the collection machine, directly or through subsidiaries. It's an empire built not on land, but on liability. No swords, no borders, just contracts, servers, and silence. These financial titans don't need to know your name. All they need is your number, your credit score, your balance, your payment pattern. With that, they can predict your future better than you can. In this world, data is power, and debt is data. Algorithms now determine whether you're worth chasing. AI models simulate the emotions that get people to pay. Some firms even use behavioral scoring, tracking what time you respond to calls, how you react to certain words, even how long you hesitate before answering. It's science turned into profit. And above it all sit the credit rating agencies, silent referees of financial morality. They grade not just people, but the very debt portfolios collectors buy. A batch of unpaid loans can receive a rating, like a bond. The better the predicted recovery, the higher the price. It's a system so complete that it resembles a government. Rules, taxes, punishment, and reward, all without elections. And the chilling part? The same institutions that fund your government bonds, your home mortgages, your retirement savings, might also own the rights to your missed payments. The same investors who build the world's future profit quietly from your past mistakes. It's not a conspiracy, it's business. But when business becomes indistinguishable from control, maybe it's time we start calling it by its true name: an empire. Debt was once a promise between two people. Now it's a product traded by thousands. A living commodity, detached from its origin, sold like a digital ghost. And the deeper you look, the more the system resembles something ancient, a modern version of feudalism, where ownership is invisible but absolute. Because in this empire, almost everyone owes someone. A nation owes its creditors. A company owes its shareholders. A family owes its lenders. The structure of modern civilization is built on borrowed time. And that's the secret few want to admit. Debt isn't just an instrument, it's infrastructure. Without it, the global economy collapses. But with it, power consolidates. Quietly, efficiently, inevitably. You can't see it, but you feel it. In your bills, in your rent, in the quiet anxiety that wakes you at 3 a.m., wondering how you'll make the next payment. And while you sleep, your debt may already be moving, traded, packaged, resold, reborn. It's not just money anymore, it's identity. Because in the end, the debt you carry isn't only about what you owe, it's about who gets to own you. So next time a collector calls, or a letter arrives, remember, they might not even know who they're working for. But someone does. Somewhere, behind closed doors, someone profits from your promise. And that's why this story matters. Because to understand the world of money, you must first see the invisible chains that hold it together. If this made you question who truly owns your life, don't just watch and move on. Think, reflect, subscribe. Because here, at the History of Debt, we don't just tell you who's in control. We show you the systems they built to stay that way.